Okay, Mark meets Paul Bainsfair, the Director General at the IPA and Chairman of IRIS. Hi Paul.
How are you?
I'm good, you okay?
Not bad, thanks.
Good. Can you give us a very quick summary of your career?
Well, it's a very long career, so a quick summary, I'll do my best. I did the advertising course at Watford, which that was back in the mid-70s.
Who's your tutor then?
Oh God, they're all probably dead by now. But there was a guy called Swindells who used to run it, and it was the course to get on, because in those days, advertising, you couldn't go and study at many universities or even other art colleges. It was a pretty unusual course. Actually, I think it was at Watford because Watford was a printing town, and so the local college put on courses that seemed to be relevant. Anyhow, it got this big reputation. I luckily got in there. Then I started at J. Walter Thompson on a sort of trainee scheme, and then
what was your kind of job responsibilities?
I was like a lackey to account execs, sort of running around doing bits and pieces like a project manager, really. And the idea was that you would progress and become an account exec and so on and so forth. But I heard about this agency called Saatchi Saatchi, which was by that stage, although it was small, it was beginning to make a name for itself. And I managed to get in there early doors, as they say in football terminology, and kind of got dragged along by the great success that Saatchi's had, climbed my way up the greasy pole there, and ended up as the managing director of their office in Charlotte Street by the mid-80s.
So through the client services?
Yeah, I was very much an account man. I kind of wanted to be a creative, but I knew I really wasn't good enough. So I thought, well, I love the business. I can do this account handling lark. So I did that. And then, like all advertising people, I think I've been nurturing the idea that one day I might start my own agency. And I did, with a bloke called Dave Trott and another guy called John Sharkey. So we did that in 1991 and had quite a lot of success. Ran it for about 8 or 9 years, and then we were bought out by Omnicom, and our agency was merged with 2 or 3 other agencies to form what is today known as TVWA London. And I went on and worked. I ran TVWA London and then their European operation for quite a few years before I kind of got a bit fed up being an employee again and had a bit of time off. And then I did some non-exec work. I wanted to get into the digital world, so I was the chairman of Lean Mean Fighting Machine for a while.
Okay,
and then
cool.
Also IRIS, who had a big digital arm. And at that point I was kind of thinking I might want to work full-time again. And the IRIS guy said to me, come and join us. So I ended up as chairman there, which I did for 2 or 3 years. Before they offered me this job. So now here I am at the IPA. I still have my connection to the IRIS, and lots of connections with lots of people in advertising, but that's it in a nutshell.
Great, okay. What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you in your career?
Well, there are a lot of embarrassing things that have happened. I think the one that I look back on that makes me
cringe the most
was when I was running TBWA, we were asked to pitch for some work for the government, and it was when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister then, and Gordon Brown was the head of the Treasury, so he was the Chancellor. And this ad was the pitch was to develop some work to announce the arrival of the euro. So, going back to the beginning of the early 2000s, when the euro was just about to be launched, and we had to run or propose some ads that would tell British businesses about this thing. Anyhow, we were told we'd won the pitch. I was at the Treasury, and one of the ministers said to me, Paul, would you come and show it to Gordon Brown, the Chancellor? So I said, well, I haven't got a storyboard, so I've only got the scripts here today. He said, no, fine, just bring it on. So I waited outside Gordon Brown's office. And of course, we now know that Gordon Brown was quite a ferocious character, although at the time he was just this sort of shadowy figure behind Blair. So after a bit of waiting, I was shown in his massive office. And Gordon Brown was sitting at the end of this long table with Ed Pauls and a couple of other people. And the minister said, Paul's going to show you the new script that we want to run to tell people about the arrival of the euro. He looked up, kind of a bit, he's probably writing a letter to the IMF or something, and he said, tell us about it, go ahead. So I said, well, I've got the script, so I'll read you the script. And it was a bit like The Office, actually, the idea. It featured a nutty guy in an office shouting at his staff. So I said, I'll act it out. So I acted out the script. And Gordon Brown went, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, we like that. He's telling his staff, they don't know, we're following. Yeah, he looked around and said, do we like that? And everyone said, yeah, we like it. He said, good. And he said, well, thank you very much. So you'll be the man in the ad, will you? So I said, no, wait, I won't be the man in the ad. He said, well, who are you then? And we had this really weird moment when he couldn't work out who I was and what I was doing there. So it was quite embarrassing. In the end, people explained to him, it's the advertising agency, this guy runs the agency. Oh, yeah, I knew that. But it was like just an awkward...
Did a part of you want to be in the ad, though?
After that, I could have done it better than the guy we got in the end. But it was kind of embarrassing. My big moment, meeting the Chancellor of the Exchequer, only to be asked, who the hell are you, at the end of it. But.
What's the best bit of career advice you've had?
Well, I think... I always say, young people shouldn't take advice from old people. But I think the best advice I had was that, just be yourself, really. And when you get promoted, which, I've had a lot of luck in my career, and I sort of, as I mentioned earlier, I've sort of climbed my way out. I think a lot of times I've seen other people, they sort of change when they get promoted, and they think, oh, now I'm an account director, I've got to act differently, and they start behaving strangely to the people that work for them. Whereas I think if you sort of stay true to yourself, and you've been promoted for who you are and what you can do, so you don't have to put on any airs and graces. Just be yourself, and you'll be okay.
If you could have worked for any agency in the world, who would it be?
That's a good question. I mean, I was lucky. I think I worked for Saatchi's in the 80s. That,
the best.
Looking back on it, couldn't have picked. I would have picked them had I not worked there. But today, there are so many interesting things going on in the world, and there are interesting agencies like Crispin Porter, who are doing and have been doing some amazing stuff for a while. I suppose I'd be attracted to an agency like that today, but it's hard to put yourself in that position.
And what advice would you give to people that are looking to get into the industry today?
Well, I think it's as hard as ever to get in. It's always been hard to get into our industry.
Do you think it's any more difficult now than when you first entered the industry?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I know, because I've got children of university age who are about to embark on careers, and they've got friends who are trying to get into advertising, and they say, it's pretty difficult. But when I talk to people that are running agencies, they bemoan the fact that not enough really, really bright, sparky people are coming into the industry, because I think they think that we've been overtaken a bit in terms of the money we can pay compared to the banks and the big firms of solicitors and so on. So there's a sense that they're sort of picking off the cream.
Yep.
I don't necessarily hold with that. I think that to go back to your question, the advice is, if you really, really want to get into this business and you're passionate about this business, you will get into it. You'll get a lot of knockbacks, and it won't be necessarily easy, but if you really want it, you'll get into it.
Is there a part of your job as Director General of the IPA where you have responsibility to look at the kind of entry level at the industry and what the kind of changes or challenges are?
Yeah, we kind of work alongside all the agencies, because most of the agencies have their own programmes, which they run through the university network, particularly all the art colleges, to let people know they're there and that they're attracting them. We kind of work alongside them, and we do go out and sometimes put on presentations of our own at big universities. But for the most part, we're more concerned with once you've got into the industry, our foundation certificate, I think this year 800 kids took it. I shouldn't call them kids anymore, I mean they'd be in their 20s. But that is the point at which we become, if you like, more relevant.
And what value does that hold to kind of agency?
Oh, well, I mean, I think, just look at the numbers. I mean, for 800 people to take it, I think it confirms that agencies and their HR people and the bosses of the agencies are looking at their people to go out, get a good grounding in the skills they're going to need as they come into the business. And then we have a sort of structured or a tiered system whereby you can get more qualified as you go through your career by working with the IPA. And then it's kind of circular, because then we use the people that are more experienced to come in and be tutors and actually give presentations.
Process.
Yeah, so you come in at the bottom getting taught, and you go out the top doing the teaching.
For you, what's been the best thing about agency life?
Oh, well, it's been fun. And I think if you do a job, actually going back to advice, somebody once said to me, and I say this to my kids now, when you're about to embark on a career, try and find something that you really enjoy doing, because you'll probably be more successful at it. And even if you're not, you'll enjoy yourself, And I think for me, advertising, it's just, I love the people, I love what we do, I love the idea that we're trying to create brilliant ideas to help brands and services sell themselves or sell their products. And I think it's that whole, I think it's the whole area of where commerce and creativity meet, which I find interesting.
Did that used to interest you, or has that interested you more that you've kind of grown through your career?
No, I mean, I think you as you get older, you obviously think about it more, and you look back on it and you take a more sophisticated view. But when I came into it, it was an instinct. I mean, it sort of gave me a tingly feeling down my spine. I would look at certain ideas and certain ads, and I would think, I want to be in a business that can do stuff like that. I want to be part of that process. So it's a bit weird to be really that interested in advertising, but I was from an early age.
What's the craziest thing you've purchased, or the craziest night out you've had, that you've taken a step back and gone, oh my God, this advertising industry is crazy? And I imagine it was probably in the 80s or 90s.
It was in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of craziness in the 80s. I mean, there was a lot of excess generally in the 80s. I mean, the advertising industry was by no means the only guilty party. There was a lot of entertaining. There was a lot of, hiring planes and going to have lunch in France, when you'd want to pitch and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds, now when you talk about it, it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it does.
But, the funny thing is, one of the reasons that we had the money and we could afford to do that was because the system that was in place was what was known as the commission system. So however much work you did for a client, they would pay you 15% of what they spent on media.
Okay.
So it meant that the income of the agencies was very rich. But although today clients would say, they were making too much money, it was ridiculous and all the rest of it, what I know from working in agencies then and now is that money, people took a lot of money home, but it was invested into the quality of the people and the range of services that the agencies created and did for their clients. So I would say that the clients got, paradoxically, better value out of the agencies in those days. And the agencies loved their clients, they would do anything for them. Compared to today, where some clients are so tight on the money and the fees they pay their agencies, the agencies can't afford to do anything but turn up for the meeting, deliver the work, and fuck off.
But then there are still agencies that turn over a huge amount of money. For example, Sapient, 80, 90 kind of £1 million, huge amounts of money. So today, are they more sensible with the money they have, or are the margins lower these days?
Well, I think the margins are lower. I mean, obviously, with scale comes turnover, and if you're making 15% of 100 million, that's a lot more than 15% of 5 million. So, obviously, there is more money in the bigger companies, but I think the margin is probably quite a bit lower than it used to be.
And do you think it will continue to get lower, or do you think they'll become a standard in the industry? Are you working on a standard in the IPA whereby this is what the value is to the...
I think that it's got to the point now where it can't, the pressure, the downward pressure on fees can't go any further, really. We're slightly at a disadvantage because it's an oversupplied industry. So, simple economics tells you that if there are more agencies out there than there are clients needing work from agencies, the price will continue to go down. But I think we've reached a point now where that probably isn't going to happen to a greater extent. And I would say, I mentioned 15% a minute or two ago. I mean, that's a wholly reasonable margin for any business to be looking to make on its income, and that would be where we would expect our members to be able to sort of aim their margin targets.
What's the best brand you've worked on?
Well, I think it's a bit of a personal thing, because it's about a moment in time for me. And the best brand I worked on was the launch of Cosmo Forex, which is an Australian lager, which we did in the 80s. And the brief that we got from the brewery that were going to import Cosmo was, can you come up with we need a new brand of lager, because these Northern European lagers, everyone had things like Heineken and Carlsberg and so on. They're kind of losing their impact with the younger beer drinkers, because that's what their brothers drink or their dads drink. They want something of their own. And it was a kind of open brief. Anyway, we found Cosmo Forex to be the best-selling lager in Australia. We did a bit of research and we found out that young beer drinkers in England thought Australians were more like them than almost any other nationality. And we knew that would mean that they would find, that particularly as a hot country, their lager refreshing and be interested in it. So we launched it, and it just went. I mean, I think the original target was 100,000 barrels. We sold 2 million barrels. So a barrel's got hundreds of pints in it. It's not like a small barrel.
Yeah.
And we did great advertising. You know, Cosmo, the line was Australians would do a 4X for any other lager. Very funny ads featuring guys in the outback. Went down to Australia to shoot it. Big success. Best thing I ever worked on.
What's your favourite advertising campaign of all time?
I think everybody will look back on some of the work that Apple have done recently. I mean, I will say recently. I mean, over the Steve Jobs period, I think it was fantastic. I was a little bit involved in some of that, and it was very exciting.
TBWA or Media Arts Lab?
TBWA, yeah. Who owned Media Arts Lab. I think going back before that, Volkswagen was the tipping point. That was the campaign that really changed everything, and I think that would probably have to be my all-time favourite.
Okay, let's move on to a quick fire round.
Okay. Hang on, I have some coffee.
Can line or D&AD pencil?
Well, I'm old school, so I'd say a D&AD pencil, but I know that in the world today, a can line means more.
Olympic gold medal or an Oscar?
Ooh, Olympic gold medal.
The brightest person you recruited?
Ooh, the brightest person I recruited is a guy. He actually he's quite well known in the planning community. He's called Chris Baker, and he worked with me on Cosmo Forex. I talked about it a little while ago. He was a planner, formerly a researcher, and someone once described him as a walking mainframe of alcoholic facts. You know, he's a really clever guy, and I love him dearly.
The most creative person you've ever worked with?
Paul Arden.
The best looking person you've ever worked with?
Oh, Bill Muirhead.
Creatives or suits?
Oh, creatives.
Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Degree or no degree?
Doesn't matter.
Art directors or copywriters?
Ooh. Oh, I don't know. Some art directors, some copywriters. I don't know. It's a dead heat.
Safe answer.
Yeah.
Retained work or pitch work?
Well, I think retained work is always more satisfying.
Web or mobile?
Web.
Independent agencies or networked agencies?
Probably independent, although there are exceptions.
Outsourced production or on-site production?
These days, I would say outsourced.
Don Draper or Roger Sterling?
Roger Sterling.
And lastly, twist or stick?
Twist.
Thank you very much.